Hi, beautiful ones. Welcome back. I'm Evie. I am your host, and I am a life and confidence coach and business mentor. And this is the Unstoppable You podcast. Thanks for joining me. So wonderful to have you here. Hi, if you're watching over on YouTube, love you, see you, give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. It makes such a difference for me and it would mean the world to me. And if you're an audio only listener on the podcast, make sure you are following along wherever you're listening to your podcast on. That would be such a huge favor for me. Thank you so much. Now we're in for a good one today. This is all about basically the number one thing that I see holding people back all of the time from going after their soul gifts, from going after their dreams, from going after their passions, from going after the goals, whatever it might be in their lives or their businesses, and how you can overcome it. So this is one to come back to if you're having any doubts or wobbles, or maybe this is a really timely episode for you. And if that's for you, keep listening. You're going to love this. And it might be one even to send to your friends and family that need to hear this too. I feel like this conversation could be one of those. Alrighty, before we dive in though, I have a beautiful quote or mantra for today. And this is from this beautiful book here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this. This is Lisa Messenger's book. It's the Daily Mantras to Ignite Your Purpose. So it's a beautiful one. It just sits on my desk and every now and then I open it up. And today I was like, I feel really called to open this one up and see what the quote is or the mantra is for today. And I feel like this is the one that I needed to share on the podcast. So here goes. It's you against you every day. Make sure the right you wins. That's by Anonymous. It's you against you every day. Make sure the right you wins. I was going to say the right wolf wins. And this reminds me, I think I've talked about this recently on the podcast, a concept that I often share with clients around feeding the right wolf. And this is what it kind of like relates to this. It's like feeding the right version of you, feeding the version that you want to be and become and spend more time in and feel and create and relate from. So really choosing the version of yourself that is, the version that you want to be and to spend more time with her and in her. So that is the beautiful quote for today. Once again, it's you against you every day. Make sure the right you wins. Hopefully that's some inspiration for today. Alrighty, let's dive into today's podcast episode. So I wanted to talk to you a bit more about some of the things essentially holding you back from going after the things that you really want. And so much of this boils down to fear and doubt. So much of this is around self-doubt often. And this is something that I love teaching and coaching around, and something that I wanted to, dedicate a whole podcast episode to you. And perhaps in maybe a slightly different way than you might be thinking or expecting this one to be. So I'm excited to dive in. So let's talk about how to build more unstoppable self-belief so that you can go after the things that you really want to, so you can step into your soul's gifts, so you can express your most authentic, creative expressions and bring to life the things that you really want to, bring to life the things that are on your heart that you know that you're here for. And this takes courage, right? I feel like this conversation, we have to talk about courage at least somewhat, because courage is such a big part of the equation, I think. It's not, we don't suddenly just wake up and we're ready. We don't just suddenly wake up and our fears and our doubts have melted away and dissolved away. We don't just suddenly realize that. Well, I mean, yes, this could happen. And every now and then we do see it happen from time to time. But what I'm trying to get at here is that we have to decide that we want these things, own the things that we want, and go after them. And that takes courage. It takes courage to own that, to believe in yourself, to take the scary action, to step out of your comfort zone. And so courage is a big part of the equation here, right? But I wanted to speak to this a little bit more. So if you've got something on your heart, maybe it's a business, maybe it's a creative expression of some sort, maybe it's something that you want to bring to life, maybe it's your soul's work, maybe it's a new business, maybe it's a new relationship, maybe it's a non-for-profit, maybe it's a community space, maybe like whatever it might be, right? It could be so many different things. if you're wanting to go after these things, if you're wanting to be on stages, if you're wanting to perform, if you're wanting to, create what you want in the world and be the leader that I know you're here for, so often it's our own fears and inner critic and doubts that hold us back. And that can play out in so many different versions, right? That can be self-doubt, that can be imposter syndrome, that could be any not enoughness type stories or worthiness rooted stories that we're telling ourselves essentially. And this is the thing that I think holds people back, that it just really doesn't need to. And I want to give you some tools and some loving little nudges and inquiry journal prompts here that you might like to go away and consider for yourself. Maybe even just listening to this podcast episode is enough to be like, oh, yes, there's something in that for me, or oh my goodness, that just hit home. Of course, like I can see it now. I can see how I'm holding myself back, or what are the stories that I'm telling myself that I need to start to heal, to release, to dissolve, start to reprogram, etc. within myself. So I hope this is one of those episodes that hits home for you and helps you in so many different ways to start to dissolve some of that fear and doubt that's holding you back essentially. Okay, so I really believe that many of us will be holding ourselves back because there's a part of you, a version of you, a part of you that hasn't yet fully owned your authentic gifts and your soul work. I really believe that one of the number one ways in which you're holding yourself back is because there's a version of you that hasn't yet fully owned the desire in you first and foremost, and the authentic gifts, the soul work that wants to come through here, the creative expression that wants to be expressed and shared out in the world. There's a part of you that hasn't owned it first, right? And maybe that's because you're telling yourself some stories around that. So this could be any number of stories, and this is where I would love for you to lovingly inquire within yourself. What are the things that I'm telling myself about why I can't be fully seen, or why it's not safe, or why I can't express myself fully in this way, or why it feels really audacious and really scary to own and claim my desires and my dreams and my gifts? So I would love for you to, let me know what comes up for you as well. Send me a DM on Instagram. I'm so curious about this and would love to hear and support you with it further if that feels good for you. So I really believe that there's something that you're telling yourself around why it's not safe, or why you can't, or why you shouldn't own this dream and desire of yours, and the authentic gift, the intuitive gifts, the soul gifts, the work that you know is innately in you. It comes naturally to you as a part of who you are. Deep down, you know this. But for some reason, there's something blocking you or stopping you or holding you back from fully claiming and owning that. So maybe it's a number of different stories for you. Maybe you're telling yourself, or there's a story, an underlying and limiting belief saying that it's not safe to be me and to fully be seen as my true authentic self. That's a common one. That for whatever reason, maybe there was some childhood experiences, some things that happened as you were growing up that made you contract or shrink or hide away parts of your most authentic self because it wasn't safe to be seen in those, or you didn't feel like it was safe to share those parts of yourself. And so for whatever reason, you decided, right, it's not safe. I'm going to retract this back. I'm going to hide this away, or I'm going to put on this mask. I'm not going to share this part of myself. So maybe there's a story and a belief system that was created from some past experiences that you may have had around not feeling safe to be fully seen in your most authentic self. And therefore, even though you want to create your business and your soul's work, maybe you're already on the way to doing that, or maybe it's, expressing it in the way that you really wants to be expressed. Maybe maybe you have that desire or that dream, or maybe you're along the way and you're taking steps towards it, but it's not quite landing, or you're not getting the results that you really want to, or there's this like start stop energy or in and out energy, or like I'm kind of there but then I feel resistance and I pull back, and I'm kind of there and I'm not fully wholeheartedly owning, claiming, being in your gifts and sharing those with the world. So if that's you, then I would lovingly inquire around, what is that story? Is it about your most authentic self and being safe to be seen in that? Maybe there's a story around I'm just not a creative person, or I'm not intuitive, or like I'm not good with other people's emotions, or whatever it might be that's related to your soul's gifts or your work or the expression that you want to share. Like maybe you've created a story and a title and identity that I'm just not a creative person. I know I certainly relate to this one in my earlier years, thinking that I wasn't a creative person, but actually I really am in many ways. I mean, I played piano my entire childhood from when I was 10 to 18, like many, many years. And yeah, there's so many other ways in which I love to express myself creatively. I mean, this podcast, for example, was such a huge creative outlet for me, right? It wasn't necessarily the traditional drawing or painting, what I thought was true creativity. But isn't it interesting? Hey, so maybe there's a story about I'm just not that person, or I don't have those gifts, or I'm just not that way inclined, whatever it is. And you insert that word there, right? Creative, intuitive, a good space holder, whatever. Maybe there's a story, like a not enoughness story about I don't have enough degrees or trainings or experiences in this field or doing what I really want to do. Hands up who's ever had that one, right? Around, I just need to learn some more stuff. I need to go back and train for this thing. I need to go back and learn this. And you're one of those procrastinators where you're constantly learning and putting yourself in courses and programs and all these online trainings and all sorts of things because you feel like you need more knowledge, because what you feel or underlying, there's a deep story that I'm not enough as I am, that I don't know enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not skilled or qualified enough to do what I want to do. I mean, I call total BS to this, as I do with all of these stories, but I'm just gifting you and sort of planting some seeds about some of the stories that often pop up when there's some fear or some doubt around owning your gifts and your true authentic expression and sharing that with the world. So maybe there's a not enoughness story, and one particularly around trainings, knowledge about experience or qualifications for you. Maybe someone said way back when, somewhere along your journey, that you're just too sensitive. And maybe they made you feel wrong for having big emotions and big feelings, or sensing other people's energies and picking up on that stuff. And maybe they made you feel wrong in that. Maybe you were taught that it was a flaw, that it was perceived to be a flaw and not a gift. Your sensitivity was perceived to be a flaw and not a gift. Hands up who's ever had that, right? I certainly have. And so maybe even though you know logically that actually your sensitivity and your, to be able to have, to be brave enough to feel the depths of your feelings is such a gift and so huge. To be able to pick up on other people's energies and to be really intuitive and to sense the world, like that's a huge gift. And maybe you know that now, right? You logically know that, but deep down from way back when, there was a story and an experience, maybe many experiences, where your sensitivity wasn't supported or harnessed, or you weren't taught to really nurture and support that part of you. And so it was seen as a negativity, it was seen as a flaw, or it was seen as a liability. Maybe it was seen in a bad way. And so how can you start to collect that up again and rewrite and reprogram that so that you can own your sensitivity, own your intuitive nature, own your ability to hold space and feel things deeply and fully? I think those are such gifts. So maybe there's some stories, right? And there's so many different versions of this, right? The I'm not enoughness, I don't know enough, I'm not good enough, who do I think I am? So many around the authentic, like the safety around being your most authentic self or expressing your most authentic self. Maybe there's some stories around that. And maybe there's also some stories around like the titles or the identities that we've given ourselves, rightly or wrongly along the way, mostly wrongly, that I'm just not that kind of person, or I'm just not creative, or I'm just not business inclined, or I'm just not good with money, or like whatever the story is, right? So I think those are some of the common roots of many of the different types of stories, whether that plays out in doubt, self-sabotage, whether that's imposter syndrome, unworthiness stories, etc. I think that those are some of the key roots. And so I would lovingly inquire about What is it that you're telling, like, what is it that I'm telling myself within my business, within my, or just within my personal life, the way that I show up, how I express myself, the version of myself that I choose to share with the world, with my friends and my relationships, etc. Like, lovingly ask yourself, like, how or where am I holding myself from being my most authentic self, and really owning and claiming my gifts and my uniqueness, and the dreams, the vision that you have for yourself and your gifts. So where are you holding yourself back in your life? Where are you telling yourself perhaps some of these stories that are no longer serving you, that are essentially holding you back in some way? And just lastly, something else I would really love for you to consider, once you've had a think about what are some of those key stories or limiting beliefs that I'm telling myself, or the identities, the labels we've placed upon ourselves, what are some of these things? And starting to do some journaling, some processing to unravel, where did this come from? Why am I holding on to this belief? Making sense of it. And then also choosing to let that go, choosing to rewrite that, choosing to see that I am actually a creative, intuitive, deeply intuitive space holder and healer. And that's what part of my gift. Maybe it's also, really starting to allow yourself to feel safe to be seen as your most authentic self, right? Starting to rewrite some of those things and putting some of these things in practice, like taking that loving, courageous, compassionate action towards the things that you really want. And then the other thing, so the part two of this, the step two, once you've done that, is to consider what am I gaining, or what have I been gaining from holding on to this belief system or this story that I'm telling myself? So often they're, even though we know that they're not actually serving us in the greater good for your highest self. So your highest self knows, I don't need to hold on to these stories. They're no longer serving me. So I'm going to let them go so I can step into my next level version of myself, or I can step into my true authentic power, or I can step into my soul's work or my business, whatever it might be. So your higher self knows this, right? But on some level, these limiting beliefs and stories that you're continuously telling yourselves will be serving you in some way. And that's why we haven't let go of them. So some of you may be really aware of these things, like hands up who's really aware of all of the things that I've just shared there. And you're like, yep, Evie, I have a version of this and a version of this. And yep, I can see those. I know those. Oh yeah, I remember that it was from these past experiences, et cetera, et cetera. Like you've done some of this inner work. You know some of this stuff, right? But for whatever reason, you are holding on to it. You haven't fully let that go because it's serving you in some way. And I would love for you to lovingly challenge yourself and be really honest with yourself here, because that's the only way that you're going to truly be able to get true clarity and self-awareness and be able to break yourself free from the self-doubt and essentially the holding back of your potential that is happening here. So lovingly asking yourself, challenging it, in what ways has continuing to hold on to this limiting belief, or continuing to tell myself these stories or non-truths, nonsense, holding on to this identity that's not true and false, that what are they actually giving me? What are they serving me? How have they been serving me? And this can be a really insightful one. Most of the time, it's some kind of protection. We're doing this to keep ourselves safe, right? Spoiler alert, there's there's probably the clues to this, but be more specific, like detailed out, what is it specifically how is it specifically, rather, is it serving you now by holding on to this limiting belief or the story that I'm telling myself that's not true? So how is it serving you? And most of the time it's that, it's going to be some form of protection, right? So if I don't own or claim my gifts, so my creativity, my intuitiveness, my ability to space hold, like all of these wonderful things, right? If I don't fully own and claim that, well then I don't have to fully own and express that. And therefore I can kind of like be half in my business, half out of my business. And I can quote unquote, protect myself from the fear of success that I feel. or from the fear of being fully seen in my gifts and my true authentic power? Like how is it serving you? And I find this so fascinating. And we all have done this from time to time, and you'll all have your own version of this. So how are these stories and identities serving you in some way right now? And I want you to be super honest and see all of them, do this for each individual story or belief system, and write down every way that it's been supportive for you or serving you in some way. And then you ask yourself the really the really big question, but I want you to be brutally honest now and be completely blunt with yourself, is, am I ready to let that go? So am I ready to let go of these stories, these belief systems, these fears, to enable my higher self to come forward, to enable myself to fully own and express my gifts and to go after the things that really matter to me? Or am I going to choose to continue to tell myself these stories because that's serving me more, or that's safer in some way? And so you have to get to that point where we've associated so much pain with staying the way we are that you have to change. Because here's the thing, like change, people say it takes ages to change, right? Or we think that it takes ages to change and put all these things in place. But actually what I've found and come to experience myself and with clients is that change actually can happen in an instant. Change can happen really quickly. But what it is, it's that we have to get ourselves to that point that we're so sick of our own BS that we can see that these limiting beliefs and these stories, the way that we're self-sabotaging ourselves essentially, is so painful that we're no longer going to choose to do that anymore. That we've cancelled out, crossed out the ways that it's serving us, and be like, actually, it's serving me only really to keep me small, only really to give me temporary short-term discomfort, rather than the long-term deep fulfillment and success that I really want, and the ultimate like full creative authentic expression gift. My goodness, like we can cross those out and see them for what they are and recognize actually it's just the short-term benefits, it's the short-term discomfort that I'm choosing right now by continuing to tell myself these stories, instead of choosing the long-term deep satisfaction and fulfillment and abundant life that comes when we're living our most authentic self, and when we've owned and claimed and refined our gifts and we're sharing them in the way that feels best and true for us, whatever that looks like for you. Oh, I hope you're still with me. That was juicy. So answer those questions. What are those limiting beliefs and stories that you're telling yourself? Let's cross them out. Let's see them for what they are. Let's call BS on them. And let's also look at why it's been serving you, in what ways, and why you're still holding on to this false belief system that, yeah, is essentially holding you back, keeping you safe. And most of the time it's going to be some form of protection. It's going to be, I just want to keep myself safe for now, keep me in my squishy comfort zone for a little bit longer, because it's scary to go into the unknown. It's scary to not hold on to this belief system because it was just allowing me to be just so. It was allowing me to hold myself back. It was allowing me to not claim my full worthiness. It was allowing me to not claim my full desires of success and fulfillment and all of the wonderful things that you actually really want deep down. And calling yourself out on that and getting to a point where you can see it for what it is. We've done the self-awareness piece. We've written that all down. And then we can choose, well, I can really clearly see now that I have a clear choice. Comes back to that beautiful quote from this morning. It's like, make sure the right version of you wins. Make sure you're feeding the right wolf. So you can choose to stay in your squishy comfort zone. You can choose the short-term satisfaction and comfort of staying where you are and not changing and evolving and growing, or not claiming your gifts and claiming your dreams and what you really want. Or you can choose a life that's so much more impactful and deeply fulfilling and rich and authentic and in alignment and truly rewarding in all the ways, if you choose to live a life true to yourself. if you choose to live a life where you've fully owned and claimed your desires, where you've fully owned and claimed your gifts and your authentic magic, and you choose to share that in the way that you want to share that, in the best way that you like feels right and best for you. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to create a business. No, that could be in any way, but it's about, I think so much about the gifts of, and the key to life is serving, right? And as we serve, we give back to ourselves in so many different ways. It's this really beautiful, win-win situation. And so whatever that looks like for you, sharing your authentic magic with the world, that is, I think, such a gift for yourself, but also for the rest of the world. And in so many wonderful ways. I truly, truly believe that to be true. Alrighty. I feel like I need to do a big sigh. Oh, that was a biggie. I feel like I just went into the zone and channeled there. I hope you were taking notes, and I hope this is one that's hit home for you in a beautiful way, in a loving way. And I hope that it helps you start to see the ways in which potentially you're telling yourself these stories, these limiting beliefs that are holding you back from really owning and claiming your true authentic gifts and magic and desires and dreams. And how have they been serving you? Why are you holding on to these? And choosing to let that go, and choosing to be your most authentic self, share and express your most authentic magic with the world in the way that you want to do, and owning and claiming those gifts, because that is, gosh, that's like true success. My goodness. Anyway, my loves, I hope that's really helpful. Would love to hear. Send me a DM on Instagram. Evelyn Roberta Kelly is my handle. I'll link that in the show notes in the description below, wherever you're listening or watching this too. But I want to hear all the things. All the best conversations happen after the podcast, of course. But also would really be keen to hear what are some of the limiting beliefs or the stories that you've been telling yourself, and how they've been serving you, and really, if and when you're ready to choose to let those go. And I totally am here to support you with that. Now, also, I want to remind you that I have one-to-one coaching spaces available right now. One-to-one life coaching, one-to-one business coaching, life and confidence or business coaching. And one of my gorgeous clients recently reminded me that I need to talk about this more, because one-to-one is where it's at. It's the true personalized, deep expression and service and support that you can receive in these spaces that is unmatched. So come on into my DMs or click the links below. We'll share all of that in the details below. But would love to support you, whether that's through bringing out your authentic magic and feeling confident, worthy and whole to share those things with the world, or whether that's through in a business expression or another expression of your gifts. I'm here for that. All right, my lovelies, I will leave it at that, but have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day. And I hope this is one to take, remember, implement, come back to when you have a wobble and need that reminder and loving kick up your bum. You're welcome. All right, my lovelies, over and out. Bye.